Hey there, Adam Lowe here. Today I want to share with you a project that I've been working on. I've heard a lot of people asking for a course on creating a theme with Pinegrow, so I finally decided to get off my butt and do it. I can't bring myself to write a sales copy page, so I thought I'd use this week's YouTube video to share a few clips from the first few modules. These clips will cover some of the intro material and start to get into the meat of how we're going to create the theme. Since this is the first course that I've created, I'm trying to keep the cost as low as possible. Head over to the link in the description below to check out a few more select videos and sign up for the waitlist. My goal is to open the doors with the first few modules by the end of March and have the complete course in place by the end of April. Okay, that's enough jabbering from me. Let's take a look at the clips. In this course, we're going to build a custom native WordPress starter theme that you can modify however you want for your particular needs. I will tell you, however, that I'm going to keep things pretty broad and high level so we don't get buried in the weeds. This means that I won't cover every option or every use case, but instead I'll demonstrate the concepts and one or two use cases for each. If I tried to make this a comprehensive course, it would end up being 30 plus hours and nobody would ever get through it all. Let's start off by talking about who this course is for and what you should know coming into it. I'll start off by saying that you don't have to be a developer to get something out of this or to follow along. That said, you should be familiar with HTML, CSS, and at least be willing to learn what some of the built-in WordPress functions do. Some experience with Pinegrow is also helpful, but definitely not necessary. What I would recommend, however, is that anyone new to Pinegrow should work through the built-in Getting Started tutorial before diving in, since I'm not going to reinvent the wheel by teaching those basic concepts. Most of all, remember that Pinegrow is a visual HTML and CSS editor first and foremost, so this course might be a little bit challenging for you if the thought of working directly with HTML elements and creating CSS rules is daunting. The people who are going to get the most out of this course are those who are already familiar with using advanced WordPress page builders, such as Oxygen or Bricks, and who are looking for a way to take the next step or to reduce your dependency on those third-party tools. If you use Elementor, Beaver Builder, Divi, or other page builders, don't worry. As long as you know HTML and CSS, you'll be just fine. Experienced theme developers or those who have been creating blocks with tools like ACF may also find this course useful. You already know the foundational WordPress concepts, so you'll be able to focus on learning how Pinegrow can help you speed up your workflow and reduce the amount of tedious work that goes into every project. In this course, we're going to create a starter theme with some of the most important things that you'll use on every project. The theme will be extremely basic with minimal styling, and that's on purpose because I want you to be able to take what we're building and make it your own with your design and your features. I'm not going to waste your time teaching you how to style your pages because that'll just take away from the underlying concepts of creating a theme. Besides, there are more than enough tutorials on how to make a pretty web page already, and they all can do it better than I can. As part of the theme, we'll create a basic page template, a post template, an archive template. We'll also cover headers, footers, sidebars, and other reusable template parts. We'll create custom post types and show how to create or modify templates to work with them, and we'll use the WordPress customizer to set site-wide settings. Along the way, we'll also cover topics like conditionals, loops, queries, enqueuing scripts and styles, and we'll even build a custom Gutenberg block or two. What we will not cover, however, are things like frameworks, components, WooCommerce, accessibility, design systems, or basic HTML and CSS concepts. We also aren't going to go into much detail about block themes, but we will touch on them conceptually. Many of the concepts I'm covering apply to both classic themes and block themes, but this course is mainly geared towards classic themes. I'm also not going to create the HTML and CSS for the designs and layout of the theme, since I'm assuming that you're already familiar with how to do all that. The reason I'm doing this is that I want us to focus on the mechanics of how to create the theme. Adding all those details will give you a complete blueprint of how to make a theme my way, but it'll force us to dig into the weeds, which will take away from learning the concepts. After you walk through these steps, you'll have a better idea of what you want to accomplish and how to do it. From there, you can plan for all the things that you want to include in your production theme and tweak it as much as you want. Lastly, I want to make a special note about accessibility. While I wholeheartedly think that it's something that we all need to incorporate into our work, I purposely ignored it in this course in an effort to keep things moving along. Accessibility is something that I take very seriously in my business and for my clients, and there's just no way I can cover both theme creation and accessibility in this introductory course without getting incredibly detailed or missing something important. You aren't going to need much for this course, just a website and a copy of Pinegrow. Pinegrow can run either as a desktop application or as a WordPress plugin, and either one will be fine for this course. If you're working with the WordPress plugin, you'll need a licensed copy since the free version is limited to only creating blocks. For the desktop application, you can use the free trial version or a licensed copy. The important thing is that you'll need the WordPress Builder module and optionally the Interactions add-on. Both of those are included in the WordPress plugin version, by the way, but the desktop application gives you the flexibility to pick and choose the features that you want to license. Pinegrow desktop users will also want a way to run WordPress locally, since you'll be writing your theme files directly to your computer, and you'll want a way to preview those changes without packaging and uploading them to a remote server after each change. Pinegrow officially recommends using the free local WP application, which makes this process incredibly simple, but any local WordPress environment should work. I personally used it with Laragon on Windows and with Laravel Valet on macOS, and the process has been seamless. Let's start off by going back to the basics. At its core, a theme is a set of PHP files that tells WordPress what information you want to show and how you want to show it. All this gets processed behind the scenes and displayed by your website in standard HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you look at one of the template PHP files, you'll see HTML mixed in with some of the PHP functions. Some of it might look confusing at first, but once you start to understand what the different functions do, it's pretty easy to follow. In addition to PHP page template files, a WordPress theme can contain lots of other stuff. It can hold other PHP files with various functions. It'll generally have your site's CSS files and any JavaScript files you want to run, and it may even include things like images and font files. Themes can also hold Gutenberg blocks, which are really nothing more than standalone JavaScript, CSS, and sometimes PHP components. As we work through our project, you'll see how this all comes together, so don't worry about it too much for right now. Technically speaking, WordPress wants a clear separation of interests between functionality and display. What that means is that anything that adds site functionality, such as custom post types, custom functions, etc., should go into a plugin, while anything that controls the look and feel of the site should live in a theme. This is great in theory, since it would theoretically allow you to switch out any theme for any other theme and still show everything on your site the way you want. Practically speaking, though, especially for purpose-built themes, it may make sense for you to simply do everything inside your theme rather than manage the theme and plugins separately. For the purposes of our course, I'm going to do everything inside our theme. Just know that this won't pass validation if you're planning to distribute your theme in the WordPress repository. You may have run across the term child theme. This refers to a small, almost shell of a theme that relies on a parent theme's capabilities to function. A lot of commercial themes use this parent-child relationship to allow designers and developers to extend their theme without affecting the core theme files. Things like custom functions, CSS, JavaScript images, and more can all go into those child themes. This allows the parent theme to be managed separately so that updates to the parent don't overwrite changes made to the child. The other concept is a starter theme, which is what we're going to be creating in this course. A starter theme has the core features of the theme defined, so you can make a copy of it and build out exactly what you need for your project. This is the model that popular themes like Underscores and Sage use. If you used modern page builders or site builders, some of what we are going to cover will look familiar to you. With page builders, you have the option to edit your pages directly or to edit the page templates and theme sections of your site. Those page builders control so much of the look and feel on the site, in fact, that the themes that you use with them tend to be very minimalistic. For example, the Elementor page builder can control the site's typography, color palette, template files, and even the site's header and footer areas. Some of these page builders have default settings or configurable settings for every page or template type, so you can use them straight out of the box, or you can modify them as you see fit. Other page builders, especially the more advanced developer-focused ones, give you a blank slate and require you to create each of the templates yourself. What we are building, however, is a native WordPress theme that isn't going to rely on third-party page builders at all. In fact, it will be completely standalone and can be moved from one site to any other site without any other dependencies. The difference between what a page builder offers and what we're building today doesn't look that big, but once we dive in, you'll start to see the differences. Traditionally, themes are created with a code editor such as VS Code or PHP Storm. A developer would create a local instance of WordPress with some dummy data or a copy of the production site, then would build the theme using PHP directly on the file system. Once they were finished working, the developer would package the theme into a zip file and install it just like we're used to doing with any other theme. What Pinegrow does is it lets you concentrate on building the HTML and CSS without worrying about the PHP. Once you have your page, template, or block looking the way you want with placeholder data, you add WordPress actions to the elements to tell Pinegrow that you want to replace the placeholders with information from within WordPress. Those WordPress actions do the difficult and tedious job of writing the functions for you and converting your HTML into PHP or React. I'm skipping a lot of details like version control, dependency managers, compilers, and other things because they're well beyond the scope of this course. I wanted to point out this workflow, however, because it's similar to the one that we're going to be using. Regardless of whether you use the plugin or the local install of Pinegrow, you're still going to need an installation of WordPress. So the easiest way to do that is by going to local WP and downloading this application. You can select the platform that you want to use, whether it's Windows, Mac, or Linux. Put in your information, say get it now. Once you've installed it, it opens up a window kind of like this. To create a new website, you can say add local site. And I'm just going to say create a new site. Call it my local site. You can choose preferred environment, or you can do custom environment to select your PHP version, your web server type, your database type. I'm just going to do preferred for right now. I'll give it a username and password. And add site. And a few seconds later, you'll have a WordPress site all ready to go. Now again, if you're using the plugin version, you can do this on a regular web server. You don't need to go through this step of using a local site. But if you're using the desktop version, this is definitely something that you'll want to do. Now to open up the site, just go over here and click on the WP admin button. Log in. And you can see that you have a pretty clean WordPress installation. Now, the next thing we're going to want to do is add some dummy data in here so that you can see what you're doing as you build the theme. To do that, we're going to go and just do a search for theme unit test. And you'll come up with this link from the WordPress codex and this GitHub page. Both of them take you to the same place. Right here, this is what you're going to want. So you can either use GitHub to clone the data, or you can just right-click on this XML file and save it. And you'll be able to use that. We'll come back into WordPress, Tools, Import, install the WordPress importer, run it, choose File, select that XML file that we just downloaded, upload and import. Here I'm going to download and import file attachments. We're going to give the posts all the same user, or you can create some user accounts yourself if you want. I'll hit submit, and a few minutes later, we'll have a WordPress installation populated with dummy data. And there we have it. Let's take a look at what it created for us. We'll come over to posts, and you'll see that we have a bunch of different posts. Pages, we've got some pages set up here. And media, we've got some media library items created. If we look on the front end, you can see that we have menu created and all sorts of stuff in here. So the thing that I like about this dummy data is that each of these posts and pages actually has a purpose. So we can see, if we come in here, we've got a bunch of different buttons to look at. We've got multi-level menus to test. General lorem ipsum stuff. We have pages with and without comments. We even have pages with Greek characters, pages showing image alignments. All these things are really good as you're building your theme to take a look at and just make sure that everything works the way that you expect it to work. Now, if you want to use the Pinegrow WordPress plugin, just go to pinegrow.com, click on the download button, and there will be a link for the Pinegrow WordPress plugin. We'll save that. Add new plugin. Upload it. Install it. And activate it. Once you've done that, just come over to the Pinegrow item in the sidebar, Settings and License, put in your email address and your serial code, and you'll be ready to go. I'm going to deactivate this so that we can see what it looks like when you use the desktop version of Pinegrow. So we'll just deactivate that. And when I launch Pinegrow, I can click on this button for my interactive tutorials. I definitely recommend using these if you're not familiar with Pinegrow already, where you can come in and say New Project. What we're going to want is a plain HTML project, and I'm not even going to use normalize. We'll just use regular index.html. Once that opens up, we'll save this file. I'm going to save it in a directory called PG project and hit save. Now it's going to ask, do I want to open this project as a project? Yes, I do. Okay, here we go. Now, the thing that you definitely want to remember is that you need to save this as index.html. Otherwise, things get a little bit wonky with the theme. Now, the next thing we're going to want to do to set things up using Pinegrow Desktop is just come over here to the WordPress theme builder and say activate WordPress. We're going to do a project type of theme. I'll give it a name. We'll give it a slug. And we're going to do a theme folder. And for this, we're going to want to put this inside of that local WordPress installation that we just created. So this is the trickiest part right here. I'm going to copy out this theme slug, and you'll see why in a minute. We'll come back to local WP, and here I want to go to my site folder. This is going to open up Windows Explorer or your Finder, and it's going to show you the folder that holds your local sites. You want to go to the app folder, public, and here this is your WordPress installation. In here, you're going to go to WP Content, Themes, and now I need to create the folder where we're going to save that theme. So I just create a new folder in there, call it My Example Theme. This really should be the same name as the slug that you chose inside of Pinegrow. I'm going to copy this entire directory path, paste it there inside my theme folder. For site URL, we'll come over to our browser and we'll grab the URL of the site there, paste that in. Our master page is going to be index.html. For theme version, I like to start off with 0.0.1, and we'll let this auto increment the version on every export. You don't have to do it this way. You can do it manually if you want, but I just find that this is easier. Everything else we're going to leave the same. Hit Save Settings. And now we'll go to WordPress and export the theme. And it's going to say that files were added to the project. When I click OK, we can now come over to our Windows Explorer again, and you'll see inside of there, it's written the basic files that we need for our theme. So we've got our header PHP, our footer.php, a functions, a style, a CSS directory with the style.css, and an includes directory with the custom.php and some helpers in there. You can also see the same thing by coming over to Pinegrow and going to the Projects tab, and you'll see these are the files that are inside your Pinegrow project. And if you open up this PG export, this is going to show you what it's exporting to your WordPress theme directory. So this doesn't actually show you the theme directory, but this is kind of like a temporary holding spot for all the things that get exported. Now, the next thing you want to consider is whether you want to take this theme plugin settings, and instead of hard coding this path, you might want to use a variable for this. You might also want to use a variable for your site URL. The reason why is because if you're using multiple computers, you probably want to use that variable so that you can switch out the directory names. The way I like to do this is by canceling out of here. If you come over to Support and Settings, you scroll down, you've got these Define User Variables, and I can type in my variable name, my new theme equals the path to my theme. I might also want to do my new theme URL and put in the URL there. To use these variables, we're going to save this, come back to my WordPress theme settings. And the syntax for this is just a little bit odd. We're going to do $, curly brackets, variable name, and the same thing for the site URL. My new theme -URL. There we go. So now if I clear this theme folder, you'll see that it's cleared everything out. So it does know about that variable that I used. And if I come back to WordPress and export the theme again, you'll see that it's done it. Now, you don't have to use those variables if you don't want to, but I thought that I would just show it to you there because it is a nice trick and it is very convenient to have. I work on both a Windows machine and a Mac laptop, so I find it really convenient to be able to define those variables and work between them on multiple projects and not have to worry about redefining these plugin settings each time I switch things around. So that's it. Now that you have this done, you're ready to start building your theme inside of Pinegrow, whether you're using Pinegrow Desktop or the Pinegrow WordPress plugin. Now, if you learn nothing else from this course, I want you to learn this because it really is the most important part of creating a WordPress theme. And this is the WordPress hierarchy. Here's a diagram that you can find either on the WordPress website, or if you go to wphierarchy.com, you'll see this. To get to it, just type in WP hierarchy into Google, and you'll come up with the template hierarchy in the Theme Developer Handbook. It's about halfway down the page, and you'll see the visual overview here. The other thing you can do is to go to wphierarchy.com, and they have another version of it that's sort of similar. They've just changed a few things here and there. The concepts are still the same. What this shows you is what template files apply to which pages on your website. Now, the most important thing to know is that we've got this index.php. This is your default template. If nothing else exists, this is the one that WordPress is going to show you. If you look at this diagram in gray, all these things that are gray are different page types. So for example, we've got archive pages, singular pages, post pages, static pages, front page, blog post index, 404 page, search results, etc., etc. And then it shows you, it maps back to what those template names are going to be. So those orange ones are going to be your variable templates. These teal ones are going to be your secondary templates. These dark blue ones are going to be your primary templates. So from here, we can start to map out which templates we need in our project. When you're planning out your theme, you're going to want to have a good sense for what kind of information is going to go in your website and how you want to show that. So for this very basic theme, I want to have a general page that's got a header area, a footer area, and some content. For a post, I want to have two columns. I want to have one with a sidebar showing categories and tags. I want to have my title. I want to show a little bit of metadata information about the post, the content of the post, and then again, my footer. And for my archive page, I want to keep this very basic. So we're just going to show the featured image. We're going to show the title of the archive, the excerpt of the archive, and again, we're going to have our sidebar with the categories and tags on there. At the very bottom, we'll have some basic pagination. So how does all this map back to the WP hierarchy? Well, let's take a look at all the different things that we're going to need. First of all, we're going to need some sort of an archive page to show our blog archives. Then we're going to need something to show our posts. So we've got a single post page. We need something for our static pages. So this is right here. Our front page is going to be a general static page. So for that, I'm just going to let it use whatever we're using for our static pages. We're going to have our blog post index page, which is going to really be the same design as our archive page. Same thing with our search result page. That's going to have the same design as our archive page. And then of course, we're going to have our 404 page. So given all that, which templates do we need? Let's erase this here. Well, we'll start with our static page because this is going to be the easy one. Our static page maps straight back to page.php. Same thing with our 404 page. This is just going to be made by 404.php. Our posts is going to be made by single.php. And then we have an option. We can do an archive page using archive.php, a blog post index with home, and a search result page with search. Or I can let all these pass through and simply use index.php to handle all three. And that's how we're going to do it. So we'll end up with an index.php, a single.php, a page.php, 404.php, and then we'll have some template parts. If you've made it this far, congratulations. If this is something that interests you, I say go into my website and sign up for the waitlist so that you can be the first to know when this course is released. I'll see you next time.